everybody, and welcome to AMC Mailbag, the all-mailbag show here on AMC Movie News, where all we do is take your questions. I'm Ashley Mova, and if you've got a question, you can send it over anytime to amcmovietalk@gmail.com. And sitting with me to answer some of those questions is the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News, John Campea.
Well,
John, how are you?
Hey, everybody. I'm doing great. I'm really excited. Actually, we got a new fact checker sitting in today. We got fact checker Wendy over here today helping us out with the fact checking. Hey, Wendy.
Hey, Wendy.
All right, I'm ready to go.
I am too. All right. First one comes from Kevin Chico, and he writes, "Hey, AMC, I'm a longtime fan and glad to see Phase 3 going so well. My question is, are the rumors true about Doomsday being in Batman vs. Superman? And if so, what do you think about this? Plus, do you think that Superman will die in Batman vs. Superman? Thanks, and appreciate everything y'all do for the movie news community."
Yeah, so a rumor started going around that, so that Doomsday was going to be in the movie. And that, if I'm remembering the rumor correctly, that he was going to kind of be teamed up with Lex Luthor. Mm-hmm. That Doomsday would be the brawn, Lex Luthor would be the brains. And I don't know. I don't know if there's much credibility to this. It's possible. It's absolutely possible this could be true. If it is true, I'm going to be very nervous because it seems far too early to introduce a guy like Doomsday. We talked about this on AMC Heroes the other day. It just feels way too early to be introducing Doomsday. It just doesn't feel right, especially as a key player. Now, if we were to, I think Dennis mentioned once that if they were to get to the end of the movie and there's a post-credit scene and then there's an alluding to Doomsday or something, that's fine. But, this is supposed to be Batman versus Superman. Mm-hmm. I want the movie to rotate around Batman versus Superman. And if you've got a tag team of the two ultimate Superman villains, some people say Brainiac, some people will say other, but it's Lex Luthor and it's Doomsday. Mm-hmm. If you got the big tag team of Lex Luthor and Doomsday in the first movie out, notwithstanding Man of Steel, that seems like a really premature jumping off point. And guys, premature is never good. But it really does seem.
I'm so glad you went there because I wasn't going to go there.
I thought you were about to, but I'll save
there.
You. But it does seem premature. Now, will Superman die in this movie? I don't think so. I don't think they're going to do that just yet. They need to build this up a whole lot more. So, could the rumors be true? They could be. They absolutely could. I doubt that they are. And if they are true, I'm going to be disappointed and very nervous about what that means for the direction of the film and if they're just trying to do too much in it. But, like anything else, we're just going to have to wait and see.
If we do see them at an end credit scene or towards the end of the movie, would you expect then another Batman versus Superman movie? And would you be okay with seeing them in that?
Well, we already know what DC has already announced what their roadmap is. And after this comes Suicide Squad and then, Justice League Part 1, Justice League Part 2. You could definitely do Doomsday for those of you who, let's not assume you know what it is. For those of you who don't know who Doomsday is, Doomsday was a creature created by Kryptonian scientists who, what they did, this scientist was trying to create like the ultimate survivor. Mm-hmm. And what he did is he got this, he would take an embryo and get it to turn into a baby. And he was doing his scientific experiments on this completely the most terrible atmosphere, inhospitable planet around. So he would get this little baby and shoot it outside into the atmosphere and it would instantly die. Then he would scrape up what's left of the baby, grow a new baby out of it, shoot it back out again to die, then shoot it back out again to die, and repeat. I'd repeat. Eventually, the baby doesn't die in the atmosphere. Instead, it's killed by the wild animals that live there. So they keep doing it, send out the baby to die. And then eventually the baby's able to tear apart these things that are attacking it. Keep doing it. And eventually, after thousands and thousands and thousands of incarnations, you end up with Doomsday, the ultimate surviving and killing machine, who wants to kill everything Kryptonian now, and he ends up going after Superman, and he kills Superman. You remember hearing that in the comics once Superman died? It's Doomsday that killed him. So a Doomsday-like character who is capable of killing Superman, that becomes an adversary that would call upon the need for a Justice League, that would call upon the need to have Superman teaming with Batman, teaming with Wonder Woman, teaming with, Aquaman and maybe Green Lantern, maybe Cyborg. I don't know who they got planned for the original group, but that is something that would call for it. That would make sense, but do it as a lead-in to the Justice League movie. Yeah. Don't do it in Batman v Superman.
That would be fun. I like where you're going with that. All right, Stephan Klauke writes, I always thought that the performance of Sean Bean in Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings, is often overlooked when people talk about the movie. Are there any performances that you think have been overlooked in good movies? Keep up the good work.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Sean Bean is awesome in Lord of the Rings. But here's the thing. You know, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, we talk about this often. It holds the record. I believe it might be tied with another film, but it holds the record. No film in history has ever won more Academy Awards than Lord of the Rings, Return of the King did. It won 11 awards. It was nominated for 11 awards and completely swept. It won every single category it was nominated for, including Best Picture. Oddly enough, no acting nominations for it. Not one. It was such an ensemble piece. And I think because it was such an ensemble piece, this dude right here, he doesn't get the credit he deserved because Boromir is actually one of my favorite literary characters ever. I was so excited about him in the movie. It's just such a great story about a guy trying to do right. He falls into something and then the great redemption of himself at the end. I just love his story. And when you have an actor of his caliber doing it, and he was magnificent in it, but you're right, often we're overlooked. We think about Ian McKellen, and rightly so. We think about Elijah Wood, and rightly so. We think about Andy Serkis, and rightly so. But amongst those, we got to talk about Sean Bean because he's just so good in it. Now, other actors, there's a huge, huge laundry list. A bunch that you can think of. Any great movie with an Academy Award-winning performance, a lot of times you could look at it and then find a performance or two that was also in the movie that nobody looks at. Some that really jump out to me. When you think of Training Day, what do you think of? You think of Denzel Washington, who won his Academy Award. Ethan Hawke was so good in that movie. He was really good. The biggest one for me is The Social Network. Social Network, blah, blah, blah. Andrew Garfield owns that movie. He gives the heart and soul and personality to that movie. That movie is a flat movie without Andrew Garfield. Should have won Best Supporting Actor that year. He didn't even get nominated, and he should have won. So that's another one. James Franco in Milk. Everybody says Sean Penn is magnificent in that film, but I thought James Franco went toe to toe with him, was great on screen with him in that. And when we think Inglourious Bastards, we all think Christoph Waltz. Rightfully so, won the first of his two back-to-back Best Supporting Actor Academy Awards. We forget Brad Pitt is so good in that movie. Brad Pitt is so great in that movie. So you could probably, if you really want to make a big list, you can come up with a lot of names. Those are some that stand out to me. But you guys who are watching, jump in the comment section if you can think of some other performances that just got overshadowed by another performance in that movie. But if it wasn't for that, they would have been seen as a great performance. I'd love to hear some of the ones you'd have on your list.
I was looking at some online and I saw a really random one. I don't know. I don't think this is this doesn't really stand out to me, but they said Ben Kingsley in the Box Trolls. And that made me think I did like it. But
gosh,
yeah, I liked it. But it made me think back to last week's mailbag where we talked about different categories for the Oscars.
Right.
And then it made me think there is no voiceover category at the Oscars. What would you think of adding a voiceover category when it came to the Oscars?
That's a tough one. I think we might have actually talked about that maybe a year or two ago as well. I don't know. I don't see it. No, there's such a difference between, even with stop motion, with motion capture, you got Andy Serkis. I make the argument that Andy Serkis should have probably been nominated for an Academy Award for his performance because it is his physical performance. It's his vocal performance, his physical performance. What you're seeing, somebody say, oh, it's just a digital animation. No, it's not. No, it's not. You got to think of these motion capture things as this. That is Andy Serkis. When you're looking at Caesar, that's Andy Serkis. Now, if he was using a physical costume and he was just wearing an ape costume, that's a costume that's on him and he's doing his thing. The digital thing is just a digital costume. They're just putting the costume on him in post-production. It's still him and his performance. Voicing is a little bit different because, it's the actor in the sound booth, and they can do it a million times over a month if they wanted to. But it's only their voice performance. Right. I remember some people were actually thought Scarlett Johansson might have been able to get a nomination for, what is that name of the movie she did with Joaquin Phoenix? Was it Her? It is Her. Okay. For the movie Her. Because she does a spectacular job in that. But I wouldn't give it its own nomination. I wouldn't give it its own category.
All right. Dean Thomas writes, hey, AMC, I know it has been a few years now, but do you guys think there's a possibility of an A-Team sequel? I know it would be hard to get back Liam Neeson and Bradley Cooper, but is it possible? I know the movie had its problems, but I really enjoyed it. Thanks and keep up the great work.
Well, I mean, I don't think it would be any more difficult to get Liam Neeson or Bradley Cooper than it would be to get them for any movie whatsoever. I was so looking forward to the A-Team. I loved the television series as a kid. I would watch with Mr. T as B.A. Baracus and wondering every week, how are they going to get B.A. on the plane this week? They always, you'd think at some point B.A. would have learned not to accept a drink from Howling Mad Murdoch, because every week they found a way to drug or knock out Mr. T because he refused to get on a plane. And every week he would fall for it. So I was really looking forward to this, and the cast, I thought it was great casting. I thought having Liam Neeson as Hannibal was great. I thought Bradley Cooper as Face was a great choice. Sharlto Copley's Howling Mad Murdoch was great. The one bit of casting that I wasn't so excited about was when they got Quentin Rampage Jackson to play B.A. Baracus. But MMA, the UFC was really on its upward trajectory. It was getting very hot and very popular, and Rampage was one of the most popular fighters in the world. And so I got it, but I really wish I do. And he did okay, actually. But I do wish they had actually gone out and got a real actor to be in the movie instead. And I actually didn't mind the movie. Was it as good as I was hoping it would be? No, it wasn't as good as I was hoping, but I was entertained by it. I liked it. The first movie, though, made about $180 million. Actually, it made less than $180 million at the box office on 117 or 110, right around their $1 million budget. That means when you take all the factors in consideration, this movie actually probably ended up losing a little bit of money. And that's the big thing. When you have a big name property like A-Team, you expect big results. When you put together an A-list cast like this, well, for the most part, it was A-list. When you put together a big cast like this, you expect big results. When you put together the marketing campaign that they put together for this movie, you expect big results. This movie didn't deliver that. And it ended up losing. I think, Mrs. Timberlake, what's her name? Jessica Biel. I think Jessica Biel's also in the movie. I think she plays Face's love interest or something. So could they? I doubt it. I mean, there just doesn't seem to be the financial incentive to do it. I haven't heard people crying out for an A-Team sequel. Yeah. Although if they made one, I'd be there. Reboot it. Put together another A-Team, because I love the A-Team so much. I would check it out.
Whenever you say A-Team, I immediately think of the Family Guy episode.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah. Which one was? I was going to say, what's the neighbor's name?
Wait, the name?
He just had his own show.
Cleveland.
And Cleveland's I love Cleveland so much.
I love Cleveland too.
So I don't think it'll happen. And if I was in charge of the studio, I also wouldn't do it. But I would probably be inviting people to send in some scripts on reboot ideas.
Yeah, they said in an interview that the financial backing just wasn't there because the first one didn't make enough money. But I love Liam Neeson and Bradley Cooper. I would love to see them as a duo together in some sort of movie. Would you like to see them together again?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, heavens, make Taken 5.
Taken when Bradley Cooper gets
taken? No. What happens now is that, okay, so Bradley Cooper marries Liam Neeson's daughter, right?
Love where you're going
and
with
then she gets taken again.
Oh my gosh.
And now Bradley Cooper and Liam Neeson have to team up. It's called Taken Team Forever.
Double Team.
Taken Double Team. I love it. That could mean something totally different, but we'll go with an A-Team thing. Taken Double A-Team.
Let's do a Kickstarter. You heard it here
There
first,
we go.
guys.
Kickstarter for Taken Double A-Team. I'm all
in. Dale Peckett writes, hi guys at AMC. Love your show very much and keep up the fine work you are all doing. I recently listened to an interview with Matthew Vaughn in Empire Magazine podcast, and Matthew said he's worried that the superhero genre could die soon with the amount of superhero movies coming out, and that if the stories are too similar, people could end up being turned off by the future of the comic book movies. Of course, I hope this is not true, but do you ever fear this could happen also?
Well, this was, he's made these comments before, Matthew Vaughn. And just let me say, Matthew Vaughn is one of my favorite filmmakers right now. This guy, everything he touches. What was it that Zoolander's manager said about Mugatu? He could take a dump into tinfoil, wrap it up into and the queen would wear them as earrings. He's so hot right now.
Beautiful.
He's so hot right now, Matthew Vaughn. I mean, everything from Stardust and what he did with the X-Men franchise and obviously Kick-Ass and now with Kingsman and I mean, I just love this dude. And I know he's working on something else, but I can't remember. Fact checker Wendy, yes. Can you look up Matthew Vaughn and what movies he's working on now? He's got some stuff lining up or coming up, I think.
He is listed as the producer for Fantastic Four and for Eddie the Eagle.
Does he have anything on his director plate right now that he's getting ready to direct? I cannot remember if he does or not. Anyway, just interrupt me if you find out if he is or not.
Actually, Kingsman, it was the last one.
And Kingsman was like, but he doesn't have anything lined up next. I thought I heard he was lining something up, but maybe I was mistaken. In any event, I love Matthew Vaughn. The dude is just so gifted and so talented, has a great vision for what he wants to put on the screen. That being said, there's nothing remarkable about his comment here. You know, you're asking the question, could people get tired of comic book movies? Of course they could. People could get tired of romantic comedies. They could get tired of cop dramas. They could get tired of natural disaster movies. They could. What I don't think is going to happen, though, is I don't think there's just going to be, from repetitiveness, people getting tired of comic book movies. I don't think that's going to happen, just like we still have cop movies. We still have natural disaster movies. We still have comedies. What I think will ultimately derail this juggernaut known as the comic book movie train is going to be, and I've said this for years now, is going to be a series of bad comic book movies in a row. You know, you look back, comic book movies were starting to get a little bit of momentum back around the time of Batman and Robin. And then Batman and Robin came out. A movie that was so bad that it didn't just kill the series, it killed the genre. And comic book films just kind of disappeared for a bit until, you know, X-Men came back along and made everybody realize you can do superhero movies again. So I don't really worry about people getting tired of comic book movies as long as they continue to be. Look, comic book movies, they keep putting out Captain America Winter Soldiers and X-Men Days of Future Pasts and Guardians of the Galaxies and Man of Steel. You keep putting out those types of movies and that caliber of movie. Mm-hmm. And remember, it's not like it's on every single week. We're talking about 3, 4, 5, 6 a year. You know, so, you know, people, I make this analogy all the time. People love their TV show. You like Game of Thrones? You watch that 12 times. You watch that 12 times or every single week, 12 times a year. So like 6 films in a year, 5 films in a year. I don't think people get tired of that. What will lead to it, though, is if the quality in these films start to drop and they start to go to the wayside, and then you run the risk of people going, look, I saw 2 bad comic book films in a row. Mm-hmm. The average moviegoer may then go, you know, that's great that you got Captain America 6 coming out, but 5 wasn't that good, and Wolverine Reclawed, which came out before that, also wasn't very good. I'm not going to bother going to see the next one, and that's what's going to derail
it. It totally makes sense. And what is it about comic book movies that has made them to be so successful? Because you have the source material and then you make it into a movie. Why can't video games do the same thing? You have the source material, make it into a movie. Like what's missing there?
Well, there's a couple things. Number one, with comic books are made for storytelling. Yeah. They tell stories. In video games, right up until now, video games, their main concern is not telling a story, nor should it be. That's not where a video game developer should put the majority of their attention. The majority of attention is make a fun game to play and tell a story while you're doing it. Now, some video games tell a pretty decent story. Some do not. But that's not the main primary focus of what a video game developer is trying to put together. They're trying to put together something that you can get your hands with the controller and have fun playing, get enjoyed playing. And that's their main concern. With comic books, it's about telling stories. But the bigger issue, I think, is that let's look at Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. When a studio comes along and says, we want to make a Spider-Man movie, they don't have one video game to go and look at and try to get. They have 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of stories and storytelling and generation upon generation upon generation of fans, right? It's like you can put out a great new... I don't know, what's not Command and Conquer, what's the big first-person shooter? Call of Duty. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. I never got into Call of Duty.
You can put out a Call of Duty and it's like, okay, you can play it and you've played it for a couple of years. That's great.
Right.
But your dad didn't play it and his dad didn't play it. You can go and watch a Spider-Man film. My dad read Spider-Man. My grandfather read Spider-Man when he came over from the old country. I mean, so you've got generations of recognition, decades of storytelling, all this kind of stuff balled into one that gives you a much higher chance and percentage of taking that, putting it on the screen, and number one, getting a good story out of it, and number two, having brand recognition and already existing brand loyalty that want to bring people out to the theaters. You combine that with actually making good movies, which, before there was an age when people would make comic book movies and they were just terrible, but it didn't matter. It was a comic book movie. That ain't the case anymore now. Now, audiences have an expectation of excellence. We go in now to watch Captain America Civil War. It ain't about just going in and turning off your brains anymore. It's not about just going, oh, whatever, I just want to see Captain America on screen. It ain't like that anymore.
Whatever.
Now, you gotta make a movie that people will have to argue whether or not it deserves an Academy Award nomination or not. People now expect excellence. And that's one of the drawbacks of success is that people have expectations right. But that's the difference now. And so I think that's what gives comic books a big leg up over comic book movies. But don't forget, we got Warcraft coming and we got Assassin's Creed coming. I don't think we've ever had video game adaptations that have had the greater chance and greater potential for success as these two properties do. These things could throw open the floodgates. These two movies could open and introduce a whole new era of comic book movies. And, we even got Agent 47 coming out here pretty soon, which I actually think looks pretty good. But I'm telling you, it's going to be Warcraft and Assassin's Creed. And if those ones can knock it out of the park, it's going to be a game changer.
All right. Nathaniel T. Hahn writes, the conversation about movie remakes often comes up. If you were going to make an untouchable list, what films would you put on it? Star Wars, Casablanca, Godfather, Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz, and Princess Bride all get mentioned pretty frequently. What's your list?
I love your list. These are great, great movies. And I'm so glad you put the Princess Bride on that
list.
list.
What about Princess Bride 2?
Kudos to anybody who knows what she's talking about. Okay, it's very simple. My list is a very simple one. None. None. I have no untouchable movies on my list. None. Not even Star Wars, not even Princess Bride, not even The Godfather. Nothing to me is untouchable. Great art is built upon great art. I mean, that's an old saying, but it's very, very true. And here's why. It always goes back to anytime any discussion about any remake comes up, a lot of you can probably repeat what I'm about to say ad nauseum, but it bears repeating here. It does not matter if you do a remake and it's bad. You still have the original. If somebody comes out tomorrow and reboots Star Wars and remakes the original Star Wars, doesn't matter. I still have my original trilogy at home. I still have them. I can pretend like the new one you make doesn't exist. I don't have to watch it, or I don't have to watch it again, and I don't have to, think about the new one. If you put out a new remake or a reboot and it stinks, it doesn't matter. Just erase it from your memory. You still have the originals, and that's all that counts. And then maybe, like in the example of Scarface, or example of The Fly, or an example of John Carpenter's The Thing, or whatever, all those films I just mentioned were remakes. So maybe in the odd situation, you'll get a remake that is like so good, it on its own becomes an all-time classic. So you've got upside where maybe you'll get an incredibly awesome movie with no downside, because if the movie sucks, it doesn't matter. You still have the originals. Because of that, to me, I believe there's no such thing as an untouchable film. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean I think you should just run out and remake anything. I believe there are certain rules you should follow. I think, give it at least 20 years. Make sure it's done to movies that the majority of the current movie-going audience hasn't gone out and seen already. Like Star Wars right now, the majority of the movie-going audience today has still seen the original Star Wars. So I wouldn't touch that one yet. But then, there's different rules. Like, could the story still hold up today? Would the narrative be told well in today's context? Would today's modern technology, like say old sci-fi movies, would today's modern technology help make a better experience than what they could have done in the 60s or 70s? These are all questions I think studios should ask themselves before doing remakes. But that being said, they're not rules, you know? So for me personally, I have no movie on an untouchable list. What about you, Ashley? Do you got anything you would consider an untouchable movie?
Something that's on everyone's list, or like people I've heard have put this on their list, that I would love to see a remake of is Pulp Fiction. I would love to see a Pulp Fiction
that's not an
remake.
untouchable
It's
one.
not untouchable. I would
a
love to
remake.
see that. And
That
a lot
would
of people say, no, I don't want it. But I think it'd be really, really cool to see that like in modern times.
You know what would be the biggest difference with that? It wouldn't be because of the different actors. It would be because of Quentin Tarantino. Like to see Pulp Fiction remade,
that would be
directed by somebody else other than Quentin Tarantino. That would be a very different film.
Yeah, but even if he would come back and do it again.
If he would come back and do it again, just with a new generation of actors.
That'd be awesome.
That could be kind of funny. You know, it'd be really funny if he remade the whole movie again with the same cast and everything. Now, like 20 years older, like 20 years later, and they're
Pulp
reenacting
Fiction aged.
all the scenes that they had done before. Hey, fact checker Wendy, do you have any movies that you would say, don't touch that, never make a remake of that?
For sure, Princess Bride.
Yes, I'm not surprised.
Untouchable for me.
Dennis, what about you? You got anything you'd consider untouchable?
Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh, Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah. Actually, we'd kind of love to see a remake of that, though. All right. What's next?
Terrence Rowe writes, I know that this question might be jumping the gun a bit, but what are your thoughts on Marvel replacing Thor? Replacing as in incorporating the new Lady Thor from the comics into the Marvel MCU. From what I have been reading, it looks like Jane Foster is the new Thor. Do you think this could be Marvel hinting at events that could work their way into events leading up to the Infinity Wars? Thor Ragnarok, for example. It would be a nice way to kill off a character without having to lose anything overall. Plus, it could create a whole new dynamic within the MCU with such a strong female character. Plus, it would be interesting to see the Loki male Thor relationship with Thor not having control of Mjolnir / Meow Meow. With all your, what are your thoughts?
The mighty hammer Mjolnir.
Mjolnir. Mew Mew. Mew Mew.
For some of you may not know, Marvel Comics recently just did a whole bunch of changes. Like Iron Man, I don't know if they still stuck with it, but Iron Man was now like in a pure Snow White kind of outfit. Falcon became Captain America. Thor is no longer Thor, even though his name is Thor, but he's not Thor anymore. Now there's a new Lady Thor and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people instantly, when Marvel started to make these changes, a lot of people started going, so they're going to do this in the movies now. Here's the thing to keep in mind. One of the main writers for the Marvel Cinematic Universe did an interview a couple of months ago when all these changes in the comic books were happening. And he said something that I thought was very telling and very, very level-headed. He said, look, in the comic books, we've had 30 years, or depending on the title, or 40 years, or 50 years, or 20 years of this guy. And, they try some things and they change some things up. And you know what? In 2 years, that Lady Thor may not be Thor anymore. It could be something else. And Falcon won't be, Captain America anymore. Remember, Winter Soldier was Captain America for a while and Steve Rogers came back. Things shift and change and are messed with in the comic book so frequently and so often that, the writer said, with the movies, we are 3 films in with this character. We're 4 films in with this character, as opposed to 20 or 30 years in that you can understand why the comic book wants to mess things up a little bit, whatever. But eventually it's probably going to go back to the original Thor anyway, or back to the original Captain America like they've already done before, or Iron Man's going to go back to his original colored armor like he did before. So, he was saying just very level-headedly, look, that stuff's in the comics, in the background and in the context of 30 or 40, 50 plus years of storytelling. We are just getting started in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So while anything is possible, and it's Marvel, it's on the table, they can do whatever they like, and it could happen, I suppose, in the real possibility, I don't see them getting rid of Chris Hemsworth to bring in a Lady Thor.
Right.
I don't see them making, Anthony Mackie the new Captain America. I don't see that sort of thing happening yet because we are literally just getting started with these characters. That doesn't mean we can't see Chris Hemsworth take 2 or 3 years of a break or see them change actors. They've already changed actors in the Thor movies with one of the Warriors 3. It was supposed to be Zachary Levi, and then he couldn't make it because of scheduling conflict, so they got somebody else to play the character. But then that guy didn't come back for the sequel because Zachary Levi was now available, and they'll just change actors and stuff like that. And maybe they'll do something to change it up for half a movie or something like that. But no, just because something happens in the comic books right now, don't expect the movie cinematic universe to suddenly follow suit, because we're just getting started with these characters.
Yeah, I would hate that. They mentioned Loki, and I don't know if we're going to spoiler territory. Did you miss Loki in Avengers: Age of Ultron?
Oh, that's not a spoiler.
Yeah, I mean, there's articles about it and everything, right?
Yes. I did. I did
too.
But at the same time, that movie is already kind of bursting at the seams. But there's a lot in there. And I think also having Loki in it probably, it wouldn't have added to the movie. It would have felt a little bit out of place, I think. So while I missed him just because I love that character so much, it was like, for instance, my favorite food in the world is straight up vanilla ice cream.
Yeah.
My favorite food in the world. Should I drop a scoop on my spaghetti? Probably not. Even though vanilla ice cream is my favorite food in the world, just doesn't fit with this dish, even though it's the best. And I think Loki would have been a great scoop of vanilla, creamy white ice cream dropped into the Avengers Age of Ultron hot steaming spaghetti bowl. And I don't think it works.
Some people like that salty sweet thing, though.
I suppose so.
And I missed some Hiddleston, all right?
Me too.
Raymundo writes, after watching the teaser for Steve Jobs, I started thinking why biopics are always made after the person has passed away.
Well, I mean, they're not. I mean, that's not always the case, but it is usually the case. And honestly, like, you'd have to ask each individual producer of each individual biopic that's been made to really understand the reasoning why. But to me, it seems like the simple answer to that is because once the person's passed away, that's when you think about honoring them. And more than that, their story, once a person passes away, their story is now completed. Their story is now done.
That was beautiful.
And see, that
was beautiful.
I got it right here.
Yeah.
So it just seems like now you have the totality. You have the filmmaker can sit back and say, we have the full view of what this person's story is. And now we can make a movie. Because one of the things you'd hate to do is you'd hate to make a movie about me, for instance, right now, the John Campea story. And Quentin Tarantino comes in and decides to make it. Says, John, you've led such a remarkable life. You Canadian superstar. I need to make a movie about you. I'm pretty much just telling you word for word what Quentin told me.
Is Quentin Tarantino Dr. Evil now?
Oh, yeah. That did sound like Quentin, like Dr. Evil, didn't it? So he could say that. And now, but the risk he runs is he makes a movie about me where I'm the big hero and blah, blah, blah. If in 2 years, like, I get convicted of running a puppy kicking ring where Dennis, kicking puppies right in the face, where I bring like, all these guys got to pay me $200 to come into my place where they can kick puppies for an hour. I mean, it's awful, right? Then Quentin Tarantino's like, what the hell? I made a movie about this guy. That would be horrible. So you don't have to worry about any unpleasant surprises coming up if you make a movie about me after I've passed on. I was like, wait, did he run any puppy kicking rings? No? Okay, we're good. And move on. Dennis is still hanging out at my house. So yeah, to me, the simplest answer is that somebody's passed away, the story's now complete, and a filmmaker has a completed canvas that they can work with. I mean, like, again, though, you'd have to talk to each individual producer and find out what their reasoning is for each biopic that they made, but that's just what stands out to me.
Why are there like 200 Steve Jobs biopics coming out within the period of 2 years?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We quite often see in Hollywood 2 different studios trying to make a movie about the same thing at the same time. And I can't remember which studio was behind the one with Ashton Kutcher. That disaster of, oh my God, that movie was bad. That was so awful. But they beat him to the punch and they got out first. We all know about the drama at Sony with this particular Steve Jobs biopic, now over at Universal. So there was lots of delays and whatever. But I think if that last one with Ashton Kutcher had been awesome and had got like Oscar contention and everybody loved it, we may not have seen this Steve Jobs thing go into production. Fortunately, that other movie was terrible. And now we are going to get a Michael Fassbender as directed by Daniel Boyle, working off a script written by Aaron Sorkin. I'm just excited by it. Yeah. That's going to be awesome. So pumped, so excited, and people want to strike while the iron's hot.
All right. Zaid Zuberi writes, hey, AMC, love the show. I have followed your show since phase 3 and I'm loving it. My question is, do you think Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock, is limiting himself by putting on too much muscle? I mean, he was always huge, but these days he's a literal rock. Don't you think he could do a greater variety of roles if he was a little leaner?
You know what's funny? The great actor, and I say great actor because I thought he was awesome, Michael Clark Duncan, before he passed away, he went through a phase where he decided, I need to slim down. I need to trim down, because he did that great role in The Green Mile. Hold my hand, boss. He's so good. I love Michael Clark Duncan. And he decided to trim down because he was given more diversity roles. And at some point he realized, you know what? I was getting a lot of job offers when I was huge. So he went back to being huge. With The Rock, I don't see it as a detriment. Look, the biggest draw for The Rock is not his pure acting talent. Although he has become a serviceable actor. Take everything else away, The Rock has, over the years, has evolved into a literal and quite legitimate serviceable actor. In his own right, he really has. You look at a couple of films he did, like Faster, I thought he was quite good in. I thought he was really good in Snitch. I thought he was quite good in Pain and Gain. But The Rock understands that his primary hooks are his unrelenting rock charm and his physique.
I thought you were going to say his rock hard abs. I thought you were going with that.
And his rock hard tummy. Oh, Rock. Where's your head today? Anyway, so, I mean, he understands these are his big draws, and they just add to his characters. But look, he was big and huge and muscular, none of which is called for in Snitch. That role did not call for a guy who's a bodybuilder of the size and the stature of The Rock. Didn't matter. He was able to play the role, and his incredible, rock hard abs were not a detriment to his playing that role. Let's look at San Andreas. He's fighting an earthquake. The Rock is going toe to toe with an earthquake, but he's playing a helicopter pilot. That doesn't require a guy who's got biceps the size of your thighs. That doesn't require that, but he's able to play the role anyway. And so I would actually think that him being there, but then you look on the flip side. He's in Pain and Gain because he is massively huge. He can step into, play Roadblock in G.I. Joe because he's The Rock. He gets to come on screen in Fast and 7 and, just capture a screen because he's so physically big. His physique and size open actual more roles for him because of what he brings to the screen that nobody else his size can do, while still being able to do other types of roles, like in Snitch, like in Faster, like in films like that. So I don't think he's being limited by it at all. Keep getting bigger, Rock. Keep eating those 7 pounds of chicken breast every single day and drinking 5 quarts of buckwheat and whatever it is you're doing, man, because it's working.
It looks great. Do you think he's the kind of actor that would, put his body through stuff to fit a certain role, like Bradley Cooper did with American Sniper? I'm sure as an actor, it's hard to see your body go through all these changes, especially with someone so fit. Do you think if he was up for a role where he had to gain weight or lose weight, that he'd be up for that?
No,
I
really don't. And the reason I don't think so is, I remember this one morning, I was in Las Vegas and I had a meeting with The Rock set up, and I'm sitting in the foyer. It was me and a couple other guys who were meeting with The Rock, and I'm sitting in the foyer, and because I got there early, foyer of this hotel, and it's like 8:00 in the morning. Our meetings with him were supposed to start at 9, so I was there a bit early, and about 20 minutes before our meeting, in comes The Rock into the foyer. I just thought he was up in his room sleeping. No way. He comes in the spaghetti tank top, just completely hulked out with this towel, and a fan stops him, in which I'm sure some random fan just stops him in the thing, and he's like, "Hey man," treating that kid like he was the only guy in the world. "Hey man, stop." I'm just watching this dude. It's like, you son of a bitch. You're as nice in person as you are on TV. And he's talking to this dude, and I heard him mention the kid. Yeah, I've been in the gym since 5. It's just that The Rock. And when you hear him talk about it too, like exercise and fitness, he believes his body is his temple, and he treats his body as such. To the point, for Hugh Jackman has to rip up for Wolverine. Hugh Jackman calls The Rock and gets The Rock's work. The Rock puts together a workout routine for him, stuff like that. It's too important to him. So you combine that with the fact that he's getting tons of acting work.
Right.
There's no real need for him to step away from that. He gets to treat his body like the temple that it is. And don't forget, he still loves the world of professional wrestling. He loves it. He still considers WWE his home. And every chance he gets, he likes going into the ring. And when he gets in the ring, he's got to be The Rock. He can't be Dwayne Johnson. He's got to be The Rock. So I don't think he's the type of guy, whereas like a Christian Bale will get down to 91 pounds for a role. That's not The Rock. I don't think he'd ever do that.
I smell what The Rock is cooking right now.
Well said.
Smell. All right, that's all the time we have for today, guys. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of AMC Mailbag. And just a reminder, lots of great movies being shown in AMC theaters today. So go ahead and head on over to www.amctheaters.com for all of your theaters, your show times, and your ticket information. And make sure to click that subscribe button. And if you want a podcast version of this episode, check the description box below. Thanks to everyone in the room, Dennis, Jonathan, and Wendy. And thanks to you, John. John, where can people find you online?
You guys can just follow me on Facebook or on Twitter, just at John Campia.
And you guys can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Ashley Mova. And make sure to join us again tomorrow for some more AMC Mailbag. And we'll catch you then, guys. Bye.